Okay, so picture this. A carnival, but instead of cotton candy and bright lights, it's all shadows and things that go bump in the night.
Sounds delightful.
Oh, it gets better.
Eh.
This is Bugsy Prime's Dark Carnival we're talking about, and trust me, the guy takes Halloween very, very seriously.
You could say he's got a knack for the spooky stuff.
An understatement. But that's why we're here, right? To dive deep into the what, the why, the how of this whole Dark Carnival thing, we've been digging through years of Bugsy Prime content, from those cryptic YouTube videos to those weirdly catchy songs he puts out, even some behind-the-scenes whispers from the Big Three Box Network folks.
A real treasure trove of information, and it paints a fascinating picture of what makes this whole Dark Carnival tick.
Speaking of ticking, did you know he's got this thing for clocks? Like, everywhere in the carnival.
I did notice that. It's almost like he's reminding everyone, including himself, that time is always moving forward, even when you're facing down your deepest fears.
Which, knowing Bugsy Prime is probably the point. But let's back up a bit. For those who might not be familiar, who is this chaos-loving, Halloween-obsessed guy, and why should we care about his carnival of creepy delights?
Well, imagine a being of pure chaos, someone who's lived countless lives, experienced every high and every low imaginable.
Talk about baggage.
Exactly. And Bugsy Prime, he's got baggage like you wouldn't believe. But instead of letting it consume him, he channels it into this incredibly elaborate, constantly evolving expression of his own inner world, the Dark Carnival.
It's not your average haunted house, is it? I mean, we're talking about a guy who built a whole section of the carnival dedicated to torturing fictional villains. He calls it the beat-down freak show.
Yeah, he's not exactly subtle, but that's part of his charm, wouldn't you say? He's not afraid to get his hands dirty, to confront those darker impulses head on. And that's reflected in every aspect of the Dark Carnival, from the attractions themselves to the creepy food stalls.
Meat spiders, anyone.
Don't remind me. But here's the thing. It's not just about scaring the daylights out of people, though he certainly excels at that. There's a method to the madness, a deeper meaning behind all the spooky spectacle.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So it's more than just a carnival. It's like a giant metaphor for something.
Exactly. It's a reflection of Bugsy Prime himself, his struggles, his triumphs, his unique way of processing this vast, chaotic existence. He's essentially inviting us to look inward and confront those parts of ourselves we usually keep hidden.
And maybe win a wish from a chaos lord while we're at it. Because, why not up the stakes?
Only Bugsy Prime could make facing your fears a competitive sport. But that's part of what makes the Dark Carnival so fascinating. It's this strange mix of deep self-reflection and outright spooky fun, all wrapped up in a package that's constantly evolving.
And speaking of evolving, you mentioned he's been dropping hints about this whole back-to-basics thing. What's that all about? Is he trading in the elaborate puzzles for something even more intense?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But we'll get to that in just a bit.
You're killing me with the suspense.
Patience, my friend. Good things come to those who wait. Or in this case, good things. And probably a healthy dose of existential dread.
It wouldn't be Bugsy Prime's Dark Carnival without it.
Yeah.
But before we get to the nitty-gritty of this back-to-basics philosophy and what it means for those brave enough to enter the carnival gates, let's talk about Bugsy Prime's fascination with October. It's not just a passing interest for him. It's like this all-consuming passion.
Oh, absolutely. October for Bugsy Prime is more than just a month. It's like this primal force that awakens something deep within him. Remember those cryptic videos he released a few years back? The ones with all the swirling fog and whispered rhymes?
How could I forget? Gave me nightmares for weeks.
Right. Well, those were all filmed in October. He said himself that it's the one time of year when the veil between worlds thins and those darker energies he's so drawn to, they become almost tangible.
And what better way to channel those energies than with a carnival designed to make your skin crawl, right?
Exactly. It's like this massive release valve for all those pent-up fears and anxieties, both his own and ours, collectively.
Which might explain why the lines to get into this thing are always ridiculously long. People love a good scare, especially when it's orchestrated by a chaos lord with a flair for the dramatic.
But here's the interesting part. The Dark Carnival wasn't always the stripped-down, visceral experience it is now. In the early years, it was all about elaborate lore, complex puzzles, and hidden clues. Think escape room meets haunted house, but on a much grander scale.
Right. I remember those videos with the cryptic riddles and hidden messages. Fans spent weeks trying to decipher them all.
Exactly. But in recent years, there's been a noticeable shift. The puzzles are gone, the lore is simplified, and the focus is on raw, unfiltered emotion.
So instead of deciphering a cryptic clue to escape a haunted maze, you're just facing your fears head on.
Essentially, yes. And this ties into his back to basics philosophy. It's about stripping away the distractions, the intellectualization of fear, and experiencing it in its rawest form.
Okay, I can see how that would be effective in a terrifying sort of way.
Yeah.
But this whole back to basics thing, it's not just about facing fears, right? It's connected to something much deeper within Bugsy Prime himself. Remember those mentions of past lives and doom selves?
Ah, yes, the doom cells. Not exactly a light topic, but crucial to understanding the Dark Carnival's true nature. Picture this. You're carrying the weight of every past life, every mistake, every regret.
That's heavy stuff.
It is. And these doom selves, these echoes of his past selves, they're not just abstract concepts. They merged with him, creating this incredibly powerful, but also incredibly burdened being.
So these doom selves, they're literally part of him now. No wonder he's obsessed with exploring his dark side. He's got a whole chorus of past selves urging him on.
It's more nuanced than that. Yes, they're part of him, but Bugsy Prime is ultimately in control. He acknowledges their presence, their influence, but he doesn't let them define him.
Okay, so it's less about being controlled by his past and more about choosing to confront it head on.
Exactly. And that's a powerful message, even for those of us who haven't lived 9 million lives. It's about acknowledging our past, our mistakes, even our darkest impulses, and choosing how we move forward.
And sometimes that means building a terrifying carnival to work through it all.
Well, that's the Bugsy Prime approach anyway.
So we've got this fascinating mix of deep self-reflection and outright spooky carnival fun. But how does this back-to-basics philosophy actually play out in the Dark Carnival itself? Like, what can visitors actually expect when they walk through those gates?
Well, for starters, don't expect any prizes for guessing the weight of a giant pumpkin.
Or winning a goldfish, hopefully?
More like winning a chance to confront your deepest fears while riding a haunted Ferris wheel. Each revolution brings you face to face with something new, something tailored just for you.
You know, I think I just threw up a little in my mouth.
And that's just the beginning. There's a carousel of the damned where the painted steeds are more likely to steal your soul than offer a leisurely ride.
Oh, in the Hall of Mirrors. Tell me it's not as creepy as I imagine.
Well, let's just say this isn't your typical funhouse reflection situation. Imagine gazing into those distorted mirrors and seeing not just your reflection, but glimpses of every bad decision you've ever made, every dark impulse you've ever suppressed.
I think I'd rather face the soul-stealing steeds.
It's all part of the experience, the confrontation, the stripping away of those layers we build around ourselves.
And speaking of stripping away layers, let's talk about the Crypt of Chaos. That place sounds seriously intense, even for Bugsy Prime.
It is. Imagine a constantly shifting labyrinth filled with traps designed to test your every limit. Bugsy Prime describes it as a descent into the heart of chaos itself.
Okay, that's ominous.
And then there are the abominations, powerful beings created by one of his ancestors, manifestations of pure chaos and malice.
Abominations. Sounds delightful. What do they look like?
Now that's where the mystery deepens. Bugsy Prime has remained notoriously tight-lipped about their specific forms, but rumors abound. Some say they're grotesque parodies of humanity. Others whisper of creatures that defy description, leaving you questioning your own sanity.
So basically a fun-filled family outing. But with all this talk of terror and abominations, it's easy to forget there's actually a point to navigating this terrifying labyrinth. You can win something, right? And I'm not talking about a cheap plastic toy either.
You're right, this isn't your average carnival prize. Bugsy Prime offers a chance to have a single wish granted by the Chaos Lord himself.
That's a pretty sweet deal, considering the alternative is probably being chased out of the carnival by a pack of soul-stealing carousel horses.
The challenge, of course, is actually reaching the heart of the crypt, where the wish can be granted.
And surviving the abominations. Let's not forget about those.
Right, of course. But there's another catch, a little detail Bugsy Prime likes to throw in there to make things interesting.
Oh, I have a feeling I know where this is going.
Visitors have to cooperate with anyone else they encounter within the crypt.
See, do it.
Yeah.
Because facing your fears alone just isn't terrifying enough.
Exactly. It's about confronting not just your individual darkness, but also learning to navigate those shadows alongside others, finding strength in shared vulnerability.
So it's like a team-building exercise from hell.
You could say that.
But hey, at least you might walk away with a wish granted by a Chaos Lord, if you survive, that is. But for those of us who prefer a less confront your inner demons and more let's just enjoy the spooky vibes kind of experience, what else does the Dark Carnival have to offer?
Well, even with the shift toward a more visceral experience, Bugsy Prime hasn't completely abandoned the classic carnival atmosphere. There are still games, though you'll want to be careful what you wish for if you win. And then there are those infamous food stalls, offering culinary delights that are as visually disturbing as they are strangely delicious.
You're really not selling me on those meat spiders.
They're not for everyone, but the Beatdown Freak Show, now that's something truly special.
Oh yeah, the Beatdown Freak Show. That's where things get really interesting. We touched on it earlier, but for those who missed it, this is Bugsy Prime's way of dealing with those villains from the Double Zeta Breaker universe. You know, the ones who thought they could outsmart a Chaos Lord and learn the hard way that chaos always wins.
Precisely. It's part punishment, part stress relief, and part darkly comedic spectacle. Bugsy Prime has even incorporated some of his doom selves into the show, allowing them to work out their frustrations on these poor, misguided villains.
So it's cathartic for both Bugsy Prime and his past selves. Talk about a two-for-one deal.
It's a fascinating, if slightly disturbing, glimpse into the mind of a being who exists outside the normal flow of time and morality.
It makes you wonder, though, with all this darkness, all this talk of confronting our deepest fears, is there room for humor? Or is it all doom and gloom and abominations lurking in the shadows?
Don't let the spooky exterior fool you. There's a playfulness to Bugsy Prime, a mischievous sense of humor that peeks through even in the darkest corners of the Dark Carnival.
So he's not just a humorless entity of pure chaos. There's a method to the madness.
Exactly. It's like he's saying, yeah, life can be scary and messy, and sometimes you get chased by abominations, but let's not forget to laugh at the absurdity of it all.
Which, when you think about it, is a pretty healthy way to approach those darker emotions. It's not about ignoring them or pretending they don't exist. It's about finding a way to coexist with them, to even find some humor in their presence.
And that's a message that resonates far beyond the carnival grounds.
It's a reminder that even in the face of chaos, even when surrounded by shadows and things that go bump in the night, a little laughter can go a long way. It's like he's found a way to laugh at the universe's cosmic joke, even when it feels like the punchline is, and then everyone gets chased by an abomination.
Well, with Bugsy Prime, that's always a possibility. But speaking of cosmic jokes, there's one element of the Dark Carnival we haven't explored yet, the Dark Forest. It's shrouded in more secrecy than usual, even for Bugsy Prime.
Right, like he's been incredibly tight-lipped about it, but those insider notes we dug up, they mentioned something interesting. Apparently there's something within the Dark Forest that can help you navigate the crypt of chaos much faster.
Yeah, like a shortcut of sorts. Although what that something might be is anyone's guess. Knowing Bugsy Prime, it's probably not a simple map or a friendly tour guide.
Probably not. Knowing him, it's something much more
Hmm.
interesting. Maybe a riddle whispered by the trees themselves. Or a deal with a mischievous forest spirit. Whatever it is. It definitely adds another layer of mystery and intrigue to the whole Dark Carnival experience.
It does.
Mhm.
And it brings us back to something we've touched on throughout this whole deep dive. Bugsy Prime's love of theatricality. The guy's a master storyteller. And the Dark Carnival is his ultimate stage.
Right. He's constantly dropping hints, leaving cryptic messages, building suspense with those dramatic pauses of his. It's like he wants to keep us on the edge of our seats, always wondering what's coming next.
Exactly. And it's not just about the scares or the cheap thrills, though there are plenty of those. It's about creating an experience that stays with you long after you've left the carnival grounds. Makes you think about those darker aspects of ourselves, about the nature of chaos and control. Like, he's inviting us to look inward and confront those parts of ourselves we usually keep hidden.
All while navigating a labyrinth filled with abominations and trying not to eat any meat spiders.
Precisely. And that's where the true value of the Dark Carnival lies, I think. It's not just about spooky entertainment, though it certainly excels at that. It's about self-discovery, about confronting our shadows, and ultimately about finding a way to coexist with them.
Which is a pretty powerful message for a carnival, wouldn't you say?
It is, and it speaks to Bugsy Prime's own journey, his struggles, his unique way of coping with the weight of his past. He's transformed his personal demons into something surprisingly relatable and even inspiring.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If you were to create your own dark carnival, what would it look like? What fears or regrets would you use to fuel its energy? What attractions would you design? Would it be a place of terror? Or would you find ways to weave in humor and hope? It's a thought-provoking question, and one we encourage you to explore. Until next time, remember, embrace the chaos, but maybe pack a flashlight, just in case